Did this cadaver dog trainer really plant evidence at crime scenes?
Wait, what?
Well, have a seat and let me tell you about it. Our story today begins with this woman, Sandra, and Sandra is a self-taught dog trainer. And one day in 1994, she ends up adopting this good boy. His name is Eagle. An Eagle is a Doberman Pinscher mix, in case you were wondering. So after adopting Eagle, Sandra begins training him, and she specifically trains him to be a cadaver dog. And in case you didn't know, cadaver dogs can sniff out things like blood and bones and other human remains. And eventually, Sandra gets Eagle trained to the point where he's known as the best cadaver dog in the business. So Sandra and Eagle are out there and they're solving all kinds of cases. And eventually they become pretty famous in their line of work for it. They're called out to 9/11 to help search for victims there. Journalists are writing articles about them, and they even appear in an episode of Unsolved Mysteries. Hell yeah, Eagle! So fast forward a few years, and now it's 1999, and Sandra and Eagle are working on a missing persons case. There was a guy named Sam who had gone missing, and people feared he was dead. So Sandra and Eagle are working along this creek bed that runs through the search area. And over the course of 2 days, Eagle ends up finding 9 different fragments of bones. And what's impressive about this is many of them were buried up to 2 feet deep in mud. But there was a bit of a problem. When the lab tested these bone fragments, they turned out to be from someone else, some other adult male, not Sam. On another case in 1999, a guy, we'll just call him Guy, was suspected of killing his wife. So police show up at the guy's door and they ask him if they can come in and search the place, and he agrees. So police start looking around Guy's house, and eventually they make their way down to his basement. And in the basement, they notice that the basement floor had been freshly painted and everything reeked of bleach. And when they ask Guy about it, he kind of brushes it off. He says, "Oh, I've been renovating the house because I'm getting ready to sell it and cleaning and all that kind of stuff." And of course, police are immediately suspicious of this, so they call Sandra and Eagle to come in. So Eagle comes in, he makes his way down to the basement, he's doing his thing, sniffing around, and suddenly he alerts on the basement floor. And that's enough for police to go and get a search warrant. So they get the warrant, they come back to Guy's house, and under the paint on the floor, they find blood, and also they end up locating a bloody saw. So, needless to say, police end up arresting Guy. On another scene, police were looking for a specific item, a bullet. And they're out there in this area where they thought this bullet would be with metal detectors, and they're making multiple passes with the metal detectors for hours, and they're not having any luck at all. So what do police do? Well, they call Sandra and Eagle, of course. And right away, Eagle's able to find this bullet, even in the same spot where multiple police had taken multiple metal detectors and searched this area thoroughly. Eagle found it right away. But there was a bit of an issue with this bullet because it didn't have any DNA or blood on it at all. And of course, if it had
Huh?
passed through a human, it would have at least blood or DNA on it. So sometime later, on a separate crime scene, police called in different cadaver dogs to search. And these dogs searched for hours, but they didn't have any luck. And eventually, again, police called Sandra and Eagle to come help. And wouldn't you know it, Eagle was able to find multiple bone fragments over the course of 2 days in that exact area where those other dogs had already searched. And one particular officer, I'll call him Rick, is also working this crime scene. And he sees Eagle come in and find these bone fragments right away in this area where other dogs had searched. And this raises some red flags for him. Remember the case with the bullet I was talking about? Well, it turns out Rick had also worked on that crime scene, and when he saw that the bullet came back from the lab without any DNA on it, he was suspicious back then. So Rick ends up casually talking to another officer about Sandra. I'll just call him Other Officer. And he lets him know that he's kind of skeptical about this whole Sandra and Eagle duo. And so he tells Other Officer to keep a close eye on her. So the next day, Other Officer is back on the crime scene with Sandra, and lo and behold, he sees Sandra bend down, brush her pant leg, and sees a bone fragment fall to the ground. Then I guess Sandra picks it up and she's all like, "Hey guys, look what I found." So other officer sees this, but he doesn't say anything to anyone right away. Because those would be some pretty big accusations, and given Sandra and Eagle's reputation, he's not sure anyone would take him seriously. But eventually, he knows he has to say something. So he goes to some other investigators and lets them know what he saw, but just like he thought, they just kind of brush him off and don't really believe him. But another officer knows what he saw for sure. So he begins his own investigation of Sandra and starts digging into her old cases. And during his investigation, he sends another investigator, Jennifer, an email. And this email outlines a lot of the things the other officer has been digging around looking at, some suspicions he's had. But Jennifer reads this email and she just kind of brushes it off like the other people did and just deletes it. So fast forward a couple of years, now we're in 2002, and Jennifer actually ends up finding herself working with Sandra on a different missing person case. And just like other officer, Jennifer sees Sandra bend down and immediately find 2 pieces of bone in an area that Jennifer knew had been extensively searched already. So now Jennifer is thinking to herself, well, damn, maybe there is something to these allegations the other officer was talking about. Skip to the next day, working at the same scene, and Jennifer is keeping a very close eye on Sandra now. And sure as shit, Jennifer sees Sandra bend down, brush her pant leg, and watch a bone fragment fall to the ground. But this time, Jennifer's quick to take action. So Jennifer hops up, and she lunges towards Sandra, and she's able to wrestle away the bone fragment from her hands. And when Jennifer explains to the other officers there what she witnessed, Sandra's immediately arrested. And then police go to search her car, and they end up finding a bag of bones inside of her car. And that in itself really isn't strange because authorities often give cadaver dog trainers bones and bone fragments so they can train their dogs. So, in case you haven't gathered it yet, remember that missing persons case where the guy Sam had gone missing and the bone fragments were found by Sandra? Yeah, she planted those. Remember the case where there was a bloody saw found in Guy's basement? Yeah, that was planted by Sandra. Remember the case with the bullet with no DNA on it? You guessed it, Sandra planted it. The audacity of this bitch. So after Sandra was arrested, she was faced some pretty serious charges of obstruction of justice and evidence tampering. But in the end, she ends up pleading to some lesser charges, and she's sentenced to 21 months in prison, 3 years of probation, and she had to pay $14,500 in restitution to the police department that she was working for. She kind of got off pretty light, if you ask me. But anyway, in case you're wondering, here's Sandra and Eagle in real life. So that's going to do it for this video, guys. I appreciate y'all watching. Please consider giving this a like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps out a small channel like mine. I'm just starting out. It would mean the world to me, guys. Thank you so much.